Hello, I'm Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones this evening only. Hello, Mike.
Yes, I will try to make a good impression in my one and only appearance.
Very nice to see you. So this afternoon, I went to a meeting of the joint meeting of the Grants Pass City and County Commissioners, where they were talking with Eco Northwest. Just a couple little things from that, and then we'll
Don't you
play.
mean Econ Northwest, Dale? Don't you mean
Thank you very much
Econ
for that.
Northwest?
Thank you very much for that. Lead in, Mike, because that is the very first piece of news. Now, we're just going to tell you just a little bit of what happened. We'll play video for you at another point. I talked with the people. They seem very nice, actually. I talked with the people and I said, by the way, how do you say your name? And the reason this came up because Cheryl suddenly decided they were Econ Northwest because they were getting some criticism. She was getting some criticism for setting herself up with a eco, and maybe they'd be all about environmental stuff. And even Simon brought that up. So once she started saying, no, it's econ, it's always been econ. You listen to me, it's econ. I'm not going to tell you again, it's econ. We're not going to be setting up
Yes.
cameras on chairs today, Mr. Matthews. And so even Simon started calling econ. Well, that's not what its name is. Mike knows this because he
Mhm.
called them. What did they tell you, Mike?
Yes, their name is Echo Northwest.
That's correct.
Echo,
So I talked with the lady that was there to make a presentation. She said, oh, we say echo. And so I talked with the guy and I said, what do you say? He said, oh, we say echo. And so
Yeah.
all through the meeting, I'm glancing over at Cheryl who's there, and every time the city council is saying it like 8 times, the people presenting it are saying it. They're all saying either eco from the city council or echo from
Yeah.
the people who are there. Nobody is saying econ Northwest. It's a
Yeah.
small thing, but it was fun to watch Cheryl's reaction. So it's fun,
Well,
man. I'm easily amused.
she went to great lengths. It wouldn't even be mentionable. It's like a spoken, error, like a typo, an audible typo, except for the fact that she was adamant about it and was making that point to impeach the point that these people, what are you hiring a bunch of enviro Nazis to do our economic development? What's going on with you? Come
That
on.
was the question. It was, and she kept correcting the other commissioners. Okay, so it's just a little lie. That's all. Just a
I
little.
wonder if she'll correct her correction.
No. Oh no. No, 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 no.
Yes.
So that's interesting. It led into the next very small little thing from the meeting is Dennis Roller. Dennis Roller, really, of formerly from the Courier. As they went around and everyone was, well, is it true that we'll get chocolate sprinkles with that? Yes, yes, you certainly will. Well, what color will the chocolate sprinkles be? Well, there'll be in a variety of colors if that's what you want. And it's all a love fest, right? So it's like there's really not much to say in this first meeting. So they get to Dennis Roller, and he says, so what's this I hear about you being what Mike Jones calls enviro Nazis? He didn't. I'm exaggerating. And they were like, and everybody's like, the guy didn't
Yes.
even answer. He didn't even answer.
Yes. Yeah, I probably didn't even answer because I expect they probably have some history in that department. I mean, they're one of their clients was the Sierra Club. How can
Yep.
you possibly get around that?
So it was asked again near the end of this gathering. And then the guy finally said, well, I didn't answer the first time because I was trying to be polite. How to just be accurate. That'll do, really. And he says, well, actually, no, we're going to look at all sides of all stories. You're going to want chocolate sprinkles? Yes, there's going to be chocolate sprinkles. And yes, of course, I don't think that you can depend on an industry that's really kind of over. What does that tell you? Okay, so, and then my favorite part of all was another tiny little thing at the end. They came around to Roy Lindsay's chance to ask questions. And so there's a lot of political posturing going on. It's just, why will your report indicate the fact that I am the best of all the counselors, and I love chocolate
Right.
sprinkles? And it's just all kinds of stuff that doesn't make any difference anyway. So they're talking about how they're going to gather information from a bunch of different places. So Roy Lindsay says, well, I It's a paraphrase. I just want to be pretty adamant about the fact that there are certain people in our community you absolutely should not talk to. Who could that
Um,
be? What do you think,
I'm
Mike?
guessing. I'm guessing that your name was mentioned.
No, we didn't mention it. So, but they
Oh,
laughed because I'd talked to them already.
uh,
And I said, I told
did
them.
they know that he was talking about you?
I reminded them of what I'd said to them already. Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm. Absolutely, positively, just make sure that there's certain people in this community that you don't talk to. I'm serious. I'm not
right.
making that up.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want him to like report anything or anything.
No, and then when Simon Harris
I
says
get it.
something like, we've got economic development. We've got this great economic development project where we tore down a building, but we have no plans for what we're going to do with that space. Whew, boy, what a victory. They might want to know because they're not going to find it from the Courier. Yes, they successfully tore down a building. Ooh. Now what?
Uh, so so the guy just continued speaking
Yep.
when after Dennis Roller said, "Hey, what's this about you
Well,
guys
Dennis
having
made
some
that
sort of."
classic mistake we try to warn all our friends about. Never ask two questions when one of them is sauce piquante. Never do that because they're going to pick the
Yeah,
easy one.
of course.
So
Yeah.
he just jumped on to the next part. Oh, well, let me answer that for you, and never talk about the first one.
Yes. Yes. Well, which is
Never
an
do it.
indication because they could have easily dispelled, whatever rumor, which they know that that's the rumor that everybody's wants to hear about. So, but they could have dispatched that. My guess is they didn't because there is some history in that department.
I agree. And his answer was kind of like, oh, we'll do everything for everybody. Okay, they did
Yeah.
seem like nice people, but he did also let it sort of slip, I suppose, which was kind of interesting to me. We'll play a videotape and you'll see for yourself. Not in this show, because this time we're going to talk about food and friends. Food and friends. I thought that was all settled. Well, mostly. Yeah, I mean, we do go back and we look at things. You might have wondered, what? Food and Friends, what was that all about? We're going to tell you a little bit of the history behind it so that you've got an idea of was it really settled or not settled. And I think that you'll note there are a lot of similarities in this story and the story about the commissioner's reaction to the criticism they've gotten about the fire standards. They meet tomorrow about fire standards. Unless I'm mistaken, by the way, one other little piece of news is today's the last day to register to vote. So if you've been putting that off, don't bother. I mean, really, you can't register. Just anyway, yes, please go down and register. I
Yeah,
think
by
today
the
is your last
time
day.
you see this tonight,
Oh,
it will
that's
be
right.
too late to
It
register.
will be too late. Never mind then.
Yes.
You missed the boat, or your neighbors did. Anyway, so wanted to fill you in a little bit about this thing with food and friends. Food and friends, most people probably know as something more like Meals on Wheels. So when Simon Hare says when it became apparent to Food and Friends that they would have to move from their current location after being there for about a decade, Simon Hare says, well, we'll find them a place. The commissioners never did find them a place. It's not that they haven't found one, but they did it. And the commissioners were not part of that process. See, they were, for about a decade, they've been at the Josephine County Extension Building, the 4-H Extension Building on Ringette. Got to say that carefully. And then they found out, then Food and Friends, which is run by the Rogue Valley Council of Governments, RVCOG, they found out that they'd need to get a new home. Well, the commissioners have been saying, well, this has got nothing to do with us. This has to do, the first answer was, you shouldn't be criticizing us now. Don't you criticize us because it's the 4-H Extension Board. Mike, who makes up the 4-H Extension Board?
I believe that's the commissioners. If my source is correct on that.
Yes, I am the source, and yes, they are the entire 4-H Extension Board. So we're not at fault. we're at fault. No, wait a minute. No, we're not at
That's
fault.
so
We're
dumb. Why would you do that? I mean, this just shows the sensitivity of these people. Either that or there's something that we're missing in this story, because otherwise wouldn't you go, the next time we convene as the 4-H board, maybe we should look into this. And they go, yes, you're right about that. And no one would think anything of it if they approached it in that manner. But they go, well, we're not responsible for that. That's just idiocy, really.
It is. I suppose
especially when they name the 4-H board of which they are the sole members.
Right. But it's not their fault.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, now, I suppose you could have
them. It's not our fault as the board of commissioners. It's our fault as the,
really.
Let's not get confused here.
Is that not confusing us? I suppose they could wear different hats, but what would happen with Keith after the first couple of times he changed hats? He'd have it on sideways or backwards or hanging off the back of his head or something. No, that wouldn't work. So anyway, but all this thing about them changing locations, just one second, I need to cough. And so I'm going to do this kind. Oh, that was beautiful.
It's the glorious cough button. And it's a good thing we both have a cough button. It's like, here I'm about to cough, and now I'm back.
And I'm coughing out loud. Okay, it used to be that they were at the county-owned building at 4th and B Street. It was there for a quarter century. Now, I just want you to keep in mind, now we're going to be watching some videotape. I know some of you say, hey, get over it, but it doesn't really work that way. Many of the people working there are old darlings, and they're used to doing things in a certain way. And so if you change the location after a quarter of a century, they get kind of, well, not necessarily confused, but they really don't like that much kind of change. That's going to go from there to some other kind of place on Ringette. Okay. Now, what they were supposed to do, everybody's plan all along was the idea that they were going to move to that former hospital building at Dimmick and A Street, called the...
Blah, 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 blah.
That's exactly right. And that's a long title on the side of that building.
Yes. And how do you spell that, by the way?
Yes.
Are you talking about the building that they just got done tearing down?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Now,
the Dimmick Tower.
The Dimmick Tower, Dimmick and A Street. So Catholic Charities was going to rent that building. It's a nonprofit for $1. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's the matter. Sorry. Just a second.
Yes.
It's the real thing. No, it's not.
No, it isn't. No, it's
catch that Pepsi spirit, come alive.
Yeah. Right. Something like that. That's only about a 30-year-old slogan.
Well, they tried selling that in Africa using that. I told you that story, I think. And they when the trucks would roll into town, people would run for their lives because the translation in the Swahili was, if you drink this, the spirits of your dead ancestors will come alive. They didn't like that. Okay. It's like the Chevy Nova, right? Won't go.
Yeah, right. Yes. Who would want that? Why did they make this stuff? Apparently Americans like to party with their ancestors or something.
Yes, right. Yeah, it didn't sell very well. So Catholic Charities was supposed to, and we tell you the details, and we sugarcoat it. Chocolate sprinkles. Catholic Charities was supposed to rent that Dimmick building for $1 a year, but they pulled out of the deal, probably because of mold and other stuff, and it would just cost too much money to fix that. So that was the end of the location. The location for Food and Friends. So you can still say, well, look, hasn't this been solved? We're getting to that. But every time when the county commissioners would say, well, we're going to help them solve it, they didn't actually help them solve it. Well, we're going to find them a new place. They didn't help them find them a new place. And as Mike has pointed out in the past, about this kind of charity, what? His heartfelt feeling.
I don't know.
His
what did I...
feeling. Is it
my heartfelt feeling?
Why are we doing this for
Well,
people? I mean, they ought to be responsible for themselves. Do we really have to hold
no,
their hand as they're crossing the street?
well, no. In terms of, listen, if they're the tenant in the building and they're notified that the building is going to be no longer available as of said date, I've been a residential landlord. Most tenants didn't come to me and say, "Well, where am I going to move to? Aren't you
Yes.
going to help me move? Aren't you going to help me find a place?" No, I'm not going to. I'm sorry. We have a contract. I'm just abiding by the terms of it.
Well,
Uh,
now Mike is going to read an email from the head, Michael Cavallaro, of the Laro of RV-COG, Rogue Valley Council of Governments. That's going to say, you know, it kind of caught us by surprise because we thought that we had a deal until we found a new place. Well, maybe they weren't working fast enough, but this is one of those kind of in-between projects. It's not like, you know, it's a project where you're repairing the hubs and the wheels on transit buses. This is feeding old people who would die probably without this. And so there's just a little bit more connection to the heart here than some people feel comfortable with. Okay. And there's lots of people, similar to how upset they got about the animal shelter, that say, listen, you know, you're going to need to make just a little bit more accommodation for some of these sweethearts, these older sweethearts. Okay. All right. So, but don't say, please don't say, well, we're doing everything that we can. And then it turns around, it's amazing to me. Sarah Walker says, well, don't people know when their contracts run out? Yes, they should. It's just that, you know, they could be accused of trespassing. What? Cheryl, what happened to your heart? Oh my gosh. She's talking about trespassing?
Well, it depends. It depends on how you're wired here. And listen,
that's bad
you know,
politics.
I don't know all the ins and outs of this whole situation, to be honest. So
Nobody
it
does.
would be, yeah.
Nobody does.
Well,
but,
actually, somebody does. When I was the landlord of some particular place, I knew all the ins and outs. When the tenant is there, they know all the ins and outs of it. They do. This is no mystery. Somebody does know the ins and outs of this. Believe me.
Okay. Well, it kind of snuck up on these guys, according to RV-COG. Okay, so Mike is going to read to you. This will be a treat for everybody. He's going to read to you an email that was sent by Michael Cavallaro to some of the local residents here. And Mike will tell you that this is a pretty accurate rendition, according to Michael Cavallaro, of what he put in that email. I think there's a couple parts that have been paraphrased, but close enough. Go ahead and tell him what he had to say about this.
Okay. This is from Michael Cavallaro. He's the executive director of the Rogue Valley Council of Governments, RV-COG. And he has confirmed that this is an accurate rendition of the email he sent out on September 15th of 2015. The Josephine County Commissioners have informed Food and Friends that they are evicting Food and Friends from the facility no later than December 31st. The loss of this facility could jeopardize Food and Friends' ability to serve Josephine County. Important facts about this decision by the Josephine County Commissioners. Food and Friends delivers approximately 70,000 meals a year to nearly 500 seniors through our home program. They provide approximately 18,500 meals a year to 600 seniors at 5 meal sites in Josephine County. Josephine County contributes no funding. Josephine County Commissioners never sought any information from Food and Friends before making their decision and did not seek a way for Food and Friends and the OSU Extension to continue to share Ringette. And that's the site that Dale referenced earlier. Food and Friends offered to reduce their hours of use and to provide more food storage for OSU Extension, but never received a response from the staff. Even as OSU staff indicate the OSU Extension wants the space, the Food and Friends is willing to put on more classes, but the extension never expressed any problems to Food and Friends before this eviction notice was issued. I guess this is a battle for who is going to have, be the dominant party there. And I guess OSU is going to be it, right?
Right. Well, part of the reasoning behind this, too, is that OSU Extension Service, there's a district for that. They have in mind that they need to do more canning of peaches and growing of certain kinds of things.
In other words, they need greater access to the kitchen facilities that have normally been the domain of the Food and Friends people.
Exactly right. And I would think that there are some people in the community say that's #1 priority. And there's other people saying, no, wait a minute. Some of these old deers, they're not going to be eating at all. I'm just going to give you one example, interrupting the letter, I know. I have some friends who live nearby me. And it's not that they don't have any money at all. That's not the thing. Occasionally, they'll give me some money and say, if you're going out to get something, can you get us something too? Now, they could do that, but here's the challenge that they have. Just be patient with them here for a second. In order for old Fred to go out there, first of all, he's got to be able to put on clothes that are clean. That's just who he is. It was the way that he was raised. So he may need to do the laundry. That's who he is, and take a shower before he goes out. Well, okay, but see, some people don't do that on an everyday basis. So now he's done those two things. Now, while he's out there, he really needs to take the recycling bottles down to the store that can accept them. Because if you're going to make a trip in a car, well, you really should do more than, by the time he's ready to go or has thought about it, he's got to make 7 stops to go get some fast food. It's just, don't be impatient with these people. It's just overwhelming. Even just going to the store, even just going to Taco Bell. It's just overwhelming. And so if I'm going to go there, they'll sometimes say, can you pick us up something? They're not eating. You know, older people that sometimes just don't eat. It's not that they necessarily don't have any money, and some of them that is the case. It's harder as they get older to get, for some people, not you, but it's harder for some people to stay organized. And because they don't go out very often, anytime they go out, it involves 7 stops. And if they make the mistake of stopping at Taco Bell first, oh no! Now what are they going to do? Have you ever tried warming that up in a microwave? What's a microwave? Oh man. So it can be a little challenging for them.
Okay.
Hopefully you will become older and never have such challenges in your life. God bless you. Hope that you don't. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So at no point before the county commissioners made this decision was Food and Friends informed that OSU Extension had a problem with the Food and Friends at Ringette. This is Michael Cavallero, Executive Director, Rogue Valley Council of Governments. Now, Michael Cavallero, is he an older guy?
No, not really.
Is he? And he's part of the group that runs this situation. I mean, listen, as a landlord, I got to tell you, looking at this, December 31st is still 2.5 months away here.
Yes.
Most contracts are on a 30 to 60 day basis.
Right.
So this is still way out in front of it. And, he sent this out on September 15th. So that's almost now another month ago. So that's 3 months. How long do these people need to do this? I understand they're a charity and they need to, it's hard for them. But how long before September 15th did they know this was going on?
Right. And they should be more on top of things. And they shouldn't be depending on what's that phrase from Gone with the Wind? Depending on the charity of others or whatever that phrase was.
Well, listen, there's nothing wrong, and they could appeal to the board and say, hey, listen,
and they did.
We're looking for a place. How about give us until we find a place?
Yes, that's all they asked for, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it doesn't really talk about that in here. But listen, I would be and it seems like in a situation like this, they probably have more leeway than a guy like me, who I need to have the rent every month. If I don't have the rent every month, then the bank is going to call me up at some point too and say, "Hey, where's our payment?" "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll get with you in a month and a half." No, that doesn't work. But in a situation like this is different. This is a different thing.
It is different. Now, so that seems like an open and shut case, doesn't it? They should have done this. They didn't do this. They said, "Gee, could you give us a little bit more time?" The commissioners were saying, "Well, despite what Cheryl said about, well, they're kind of trespassing," despite that kind of foolish wording.
That kind of stuff doesn't need to be said. That's really, I'm surprised. Yeah. And she says that she's in the commercial, or she's somehow in the real estate business, and she would say something like that. That's really odd, because I grew up in the real estate business. We don't say you're trespassing, unless somebody has already moved out and then they're back or something.
Right.
Then, that never happens.
Okay. So see if this sounds familiar. First of all, the commissioner said, "Okay, let's not be too tough on them, because Mike's right. These guys should be towing the line." And I guess they figured that when the time got closer, that they would say to him, "Okay, look, you just got about another year on this. We're not going to extend it," and not just look at the contract. I mean, if you're just going to look at the contract, then let's just all be lawyers, right? But they were going to look at it and say, "Okay, we're getting closer. You guys got to get this together. We're serious now."
When did it become clear to the board that they weren't going to renew the contract with these guys?
Only a couple of months ago.
Okay. And it seems like they told them at that time, because
they did.
This thing is okay. Well, then where's the beef?
Okay. All right. So
not enough time. 6 months. 6 months. Not enough time.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. There wasn't enough time to find a new permanent location, because what they don't want to remember, they were 25 years, a quarter of a century in one location, and a decade in the second location. And even that, you'll hear the guy say, "Well, that's kind of a turmoil for us." And again, okay, that's a little distressing, but they lost.
Life is what it is.
That's true. That's true. But here's the point that comes in. It sounds like other things. Remember when the commissioner said, first of all, there's absolutely nothing going on here? It sounds familiar. And it's very much like the thing with the fire standards, okay? Second, we definitely don't want everyone to commit suicide, or whatever the paraphrase is. No, nobody's saying that. Don't exaggerate. I just exaggerated. You don't need to, okay? No, nobody's saying that. Third, well, they sat with us in all these meetings and knew everything that was going on. No, according to them, they did not sit through all these things and know everything that was going on. But once again, the commissioners are claiming that they did. Look, just stick to the facts. Facts are these guys should have their stuff together, and they don't have it together. Done. Okay, we're going to give them an extension and we'll look good. And they would have looked good. But instead, they decided to say, first, there's nothing happening. Second, everything's going to be just fine. It's going to be ducky, because they sit in on all these meetings with us and they're fully informed. You just heard Michael Cavallaro say, actually, no, we weren't fully informed. So let's play a video. People started bringing this up at the weekly business session. Okay. And at first it was me, as I recall. The same thing has happened with the other. What's going to happen with this? And then it was like 3 people. And then it was like 6 people. And then it was more people. And the commissioners responded very strongly negative. You're criticizing us. Let's hear what Keith Hick does when he summarizes the criticism. Go, Mike.
It is so far into the ether world of ridiculousness beggars any response. The action that was taken existed between RV Cog and Food and Friends. They were the ones who had the contract between one another on how to work and use this program. They're using a county building. That's true. The problem that was brought to our attention by John Punches, who was the director of the OSU 4-H program in Southern Oregon, and I think it's Douglas, Jackson, and Josephine counties. And he is ahead of that. He's a very gracious man. He's been very hospitable in this whole thing. And he was the one who brought it to our attention that the contract had expired with RVCOG and them and the county. And that's where that was the initiation of the whole process. And then we began to look at it. And OSU 4-H can certainly use that building, and whether they use it for feeding stray dogs is not the point. That is their building. They are paying for it. The district people are paying for it in Josephine County. They're paying for that building. They're paying for the operations of the 4-H program. Now, can something be worked out? This board has, from the very initiation of our contact with RVCOG, has said we do not want to move and lose Food and Friends program. That was the given.
Mike, they don't want to move them?
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I got to tell you, I got to tell you, I'm not in disagreement so far. And you know, he dropped something that I think even adds even more to it. If the OSU guy came and said, hey, their contract has expired, that means their contract doesn't end on December 31st of this year. It's already over.
Not sure if that's true.
Well, okay, well, that's what he said. I'm just going by what he said.
You're quite right. Let's suppose that it had expired. We have gone for, in my experience, as much as 3 years without renewing a contract with a variety of people with whom we have contracts. And the commissioners and the county didn't know, didn't realize. Okay, well, they did something about it eventually, but see, they're not towing the line on most of these things. Some of them they are, others they are not. So, and then bringing it to the attention of the 4-H Extension Service Board, which they are. Now, I'm not saying they're totally at fault. I am not saying they're totally at fault. But I'm just saying, yes. Look, you know, every time you go around a little corner, it's like, well, we don't care if they're feeding dogs. What, really?
Yeah, well,
it's not a really smart thing to say.
I understand. This is insults some people's sensibilities, but the point of the matter is,
yes,
I'm a landlord. Okay. I don't care if the people are a charity or not. If their contract ran out and I'm giving them another 6 months to get their act together and leave, I'm going way out there. I'm hanging out on a limb. I'm hanging by my fingernails. I have hit the wall of you know, doing the right thing in that department. So
I understand you. I do.
So far, I don't have anything to be critical about.
All right. That's one reason why I like this show, because Mike is sometimes totally wrong, and you know, that's okay. All right.
That's right.
Next little clip from this video. Thank you.
We have talked with them from the very get-go on this thing.
Nope.
They did not have any real response to us until almost a month into this. Then we met with them. We have met with them again. I know we have a meeting coming up in a week and a half or 2 weeks with RVCOG again about this very subject. It has never been, and we have expressed that as far as the Board of Commissioners is concerned, we have no interest, no desire at all of losing the Food and Friends program. That's not an issue. That's not a question.
Nobody said that. Nobody has said that. It's a straw man. There's nobody that's saying that.
But what he's trying to do, because the implication of saying that you're not being fair in your treatment of Food and Friends is that you're trying to put them out of business.
No,
you know,
I haven't heard a single person say that. Not a single person. I think they're overreacting a little bit. The implication is that they're being a little insensitive about a sensitive subject to a lot of people. That's all. That's all.
Yeah. My phone keeps ringing, for crying out loud. Don't they know? They know.
Yes, they don't know. No. Mute for a second. We can set aside the whole thing where this Cheryl does this a lot. Why people are saying that we ought to do this crazy. Nobody's suggesting they should do something crazy. Nobody's saying, well, people are saying that we should bend over backwards and do whatever. No, nobody's saying that either. Just saying, look, guys. One, you did not keep meeting with them all the time. Should you have to? No, actually, no. I agree they shouldn't have to. But one, don't say that you're doing it if you're not doing it. And two, You're being a little insensitive about
Okay.
a very
Listen.
sensitive subject. That's all. That's all.
Here's one thing I've learned about a landlord, about being a landlord, is that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how far bending over backwards you bend, you are going to be accused of being insensitive. You are going to be accused of being the bad guy. And in this situation, I see that they are going way the hell out of their way to provide an ability for these guys to get their act together. Okay. That's what I see in this situation. And I understand that, it may sound insensitive, and because of the nature of the person, you know what? A landlord can either choose to absorb the costs of the 90-year-old woman who's been his tenant for 30 years. He could do that if he wants to, or he can evict her. Neither of these situations are illegal. Okay. One of them, you may have to answer a couple of questions after you die. But none of these things are illegal. And in this situation here, it appears that they're going out of their way. That's what it seems like to me.
This is an unusual landlord situation, because my understanding is, and there's going to be somebody that's going to set me straight if I'm wrong, nobody's paying any rent.
Probably. Oh, that's even
neither side.
That's even better, for crying out loud. Hey, we're not even charging you anything.
No, they're not charging my understanding.
Under what obligation? What obligation does
4-H either?
Right. Okay.
Nobody's losing any money is my point. I think that's the case.
Really? Oh, really? Hey, listen, now things are about to change a little bit, because the county has decided what charities that they are going to donate on your behalf with your money. Because that's our money. It's our money that supports that venue.
That's correct.
And, so that's where the beef is.
Yes, that's where the beef is.
And listen, I might be totally for Food and Friends having free rent forever. But so anyway,
they're picking one good-hearted program over another good-hearted program. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Sometimes stuff happens.
Next clip, please.
So somehow some of these things have taken on a life of their own, and the mere fact of correlation to truth is not always quite accurate. But we need to take a step back, inhale, and then sort of exhale, and realize it's taking place, and RVCOG is cooperating with us. OSU 4-H has been more than gracious with us in their statements of what they can do or willing to do. They have no desire to oust the Food and Friends program. Trying to find a different location for them is all we're trying to do. And we're not canceling out, evicting,
Well, RVCOG says yes, and are evicting, and they are being ousted, so not exactly.
Well, okay, and then listen, wow, kind of presumptuous, I think, on the part of RVCOG to be complaining when the county, I mean, he just said, and I don't know if they're doing this or not, I suspect that they are since he's saying it, that county is going out looking for a place for them.
No, well, they said they were. You know what? They weren't.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't remember.
Found nothing.
I don't remember. As a matter of fact, the only time that I ever remember going out and looking for a place for somebody was when we were trying to get rid of them because they were a problem to us.
It's a real good, it's a real good.
Yeah. And so I think, for crying. Well, listen, I understand that if you are a charity and you're used to having people give you stuff all the time, after a while, there may be some expectation that people are going to lay out the red carpet for you wherever you go. And listen, I
might be a threadbare carpet, and they are feeding
Okay.
a lot of people, and the people need the food. But okay, yes.
It is a sympathetic cause. I'm trying to look at this completely objectively and dispassionately. Unfortunately, I do carry a little bit of passion from having been a landlord and grown up in real estate management my entire life. So I've seen a lot of this stuff, and I feel like they're kind of going out of the way.
Well, and then I also come from, so call me a bleeding heart liberal, whatever you want to do. I also come from a background where my neighbors don't always eat. And my mother was a person that delivered Meals on Wheels until she died.
And that's a fantastic thing. And listen, I'm saying that if I knew that my neighbors weren't eating, I'd be cooking dinner for them every night and bringing it over to them. That's my obligation as a person looking out for, friends of mine.
So there are people that are extending that obligation to their government and saying, yes, they're both good-hearted programs. Can you first stop saying that you're doing everything in your power, which you're not doing? Okay, all right, this is just an exaggeration. That's all that it is. I'm not saying it's a lie. But one, you need to stop doing that, stop saying that when it's not true, because it looks like they have found a place, but commissioners didn't find it for them. Okay, it was RV-COG that found it, and they were lucky to find what they did. Okay, good. But the other thing is there's a political reality here too. And maybe there shouldn't be a political reality, but there is. And that is, you need to take into account what it is that these guys are doing in our community. And then handle them with kid gloves. I don't mean that, but
well, they're already doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe it's not kid enough. I mean, listen, I understand that. Listen, the commissioners are a great target, and they're fun. A fun punching bag to work out on. But in this situation, I just don't see it.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way, because I have a tendency to be sometimes just a little too critical. I'm not blaming them every which way. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that given a choice between telling the truth and not telling the truth, well, they have sort of a default setting.
Well, yes, they have a bad history.
We've done everything in our power to.
No question.
No, you haven't. Come on now. Okay, next clip, please.
We didn't tell them they had to terminate their program. And that's not our intent. And in fact, we've been trying to figure out how we could assist them. We've offered suggestions for locations. We've set meetings with them. We've talked to them on the phone, all kinds of things. So put it to bed. The county is not evicting Food and Friends. And that is a word that someone else has come up with and is now put in the vernacular of the community, that Josephine County is trying to evict Food and Friends. And we're trying to assist them to find a different location, because the needs have changed the 4-H, and every citizen in this room, every citizen in this county pays for 4-H. You're part of the 4-H district. So, we're trying to look out for the 4-H interest. That's critical too.
Mm-hmm.
That's critical too.
I don't know. I personally don't think it's critical, and maybe somebody's got a good argument for me why we need to have the 4-H being supported. Why can't they support their own situation? I don't know. I think but I'm not going to get sucked off by that argument there. I think that whatever you call it. Eviction has a dirty connotation to it, as opposed to, we're ending your contract with us, or, when I would, say to somebody that, we are, we're giving you 30 days notice. You're not saying I'm giving you 30 days, I'm evicting you. You just say, listen, we have a 30-day contract, and now I'm calling that in because I need possession of my property back. That's that's what you do. And you can call that whatever you want to. And you can even call it eviction in this particular case. But they're not being evicted. They say they have until the end of this year. That's not eviction. That's giving you notice that, guess what? You have until the end of this year. I just, another one of my favorite punching bags, but nothing to punch about. Okay. I don't think.
Now I believe it's time. It's either time for Cheryl again or it's time for Simon. We'll find out.
Yeah, this is a short one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't disagree with anything that's said. In fact, I'd say the uneasiness is just all at the behest of frankly, the director of RVCOG and the staff that is working through this issue. If they would have put the same amount of energy into kind of vilifying the direction that this board, acting as the 4-H service district's board, and trying to accommodate both programs, that's our goal, and getting an alternative, a solution to this problem, we probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I am a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, if RVCOG at some point, if they thought that they were going to buy another year's worth of time by vilifying the board, which facilitates getting you this place to do your business for nothing, I'm sorry. You know what?
The bottom line to that is
I don't.
They got that.
Huh.
They got it.
Well,
they got a
okay.
year extension.
Okay, but here's the problem. Somebody does that to me, I'm going to go, you got to go right now. Because here's what you're doing to me. You can't do that to me. Okay? Because I'm being nice to you. I'm telling you I'm going to give you 60 days instead of 30 days. And then you're going to go out and talk to the media and tell them that I'm doing this horrible thing to you. Oh no, remember the 60 days you had? Now you have 30. That's how that one works. So you know what? I would be immediately enemy to that guy who brought me that. I don't care what your cause is. Now, if I'm going to rent to you, if you're going to be in my place again, you got to replace your director because I don't like that guy.
Now, see, I'm really surprised because I would have thought that you would say, you've got till midnight.
Well, you can't legally do that. No,
okay.
What I'm saying, and I'm not being cruel in a thing like that. I think this letter, if you're accusing a bunch of people who have been very, very charitable to you of being bad and horrible people, you're the bad and horrible person.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the way that one goes in my book.
Now, then the Courier wrote a little editorial, and they said, after all of this explanation of what's happened getting up to this point, and sort of promises that were made and deals that were struck and not followed through with, and on the side of RVCOG, they ended up by saying, but we need to put all that behind us, and we need to look to the future. So when Michael Cavallaro did come to talk with the county commissioners, that's the first thing that he said. Now, you'll see this video about to show you, sometimes they're so anxious to get things going that they start talking before I can even get in the door, and I'm taping as I'm walking in the door.
Yes, well.
That's another issue altogether. So you'll see at the beginning, it looks a little goofy. Go ahead, goofy boy. I mean, that was me.
Yes.
There really is not anything out there that would not cause a severe interruption to our program on a short-term basis. The only things that we've seen that are even at all possible would either force us to pay a lot of money every month for rent, or force us to divide the congregate site from the packing and distribution site for the home delivered meals. And that has a whole host of problems connected with it, not the least of which is our ability to staff it with volunteers, because right now we take advantage of the volunteers at the congregate site, not in a bad way, but we take advantage of the confluence of those two things to stretch our volunteers as much as we can. But if we have two sites, that's just going to be a logistical nightmare. And every time you move, in our last, we only moved once, but in our last experience, we lost both volunteers and meal site attendees Number one, because a lot of them didn't want to drive down to Ringget, but that's aside from that, people of that age tend to not like the change. And a lot of our volunteers, when we were at B Street, actually walked over to the old school. And once that was no longer available, they said, "Well, you know, we were fine when we could walk to it. We're not going there anymore." So it took us about 2 years to recover from that move. So we really don't want to do something now that's short term. We like to focus on our long term option.
Well, my judgment about that is maybe they thought that because it's a good-hearted thing that there wouldn't be any changes, regardless of what the deal said.
Yes.
And then when these guys decided, well, we're going to enforce the contract, it caught them by surprise. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, and understand that, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. You know, when you're used to people rolling out the red carpet for you, you just expect that that's going to be the case. You know, the tidal wave is building on the other side of this thing, Dale. You know, because you know what's about to happen, I believe, is that we're about to talk about their new location.
Yes.
And we're also about to talk about who is paying for that location. And
right,
who is paying for that location.
That would probably be a small business development grant, which brings into effect another kind of political part to it, because this is a politics show. They've said some things weren't good politics on both sides. And one of the problems is that until just recently, Cheryl Walker has been the SBDC czarina. I mean, everything that she wants to do with the North Valley Industrial Center, she gets, including working with the Infrastructure Finance Authority. Now, you know, all the falderall with that and claiming things that weren't true doesn't really matter in this situation. But what this means is Cheryl Walker's going to have to step back if they want these guys to succeed with this, and let them get in between her and the project that she's desperate to finish, that she's dedicated to finish, and step back and let that, because you can't have two SBDC things happening at once, small business developments. You can't have them both. And she's going to need to relinquish some of her exclusive dealings with the Infrastructure Finance Authority. And that means then Larry Graves at the airport's not going to be real happy, and Cheryl Walker is not going to be happy either. You got to watch her expression when they're talking about some of this. Not happy, but there's a political aspect to this. It's not just cut and dry, this is the contract. There's a bunch of different things, and then people are going to need to decide, now, wait a minute, do we want this sewer district, or do we want old folks to eat? There is a political side to this. It's a show about politics. Okay. Play the next clip, please, Mike.
This church property really seems to be, although there's a lot of work, it seems to be a really fine option. We can take a property that's vacant now. It has been vacant for about 7 months. It's been on the market. No, I'm sorry. It's been on the market like about 80 days or so. There needs to be a lot of work to it. It's hard to find a customer for an old church. Just, and the owners are really worried about some pot-related business eventually moving in there. In fact, they have been approached by somebody who wanted to do pot-related business in there.
Won't happen.
So now I assume we won't happen. Yes. Well, and you know what? That's I guess the county can't really stop you know, a city grow site as long as they get jump through the hoops. But I assume that what she means is that we're not going to finance that or something along those lines.
It wouldn't be this. It wouldn't be the county anyway. it could possibly involve some part of the money that goes to the 4-H district. We'll talk another day about propping up a lifestyle with 4-H district money. That's a completely different subject, but it would probably be state money, and they're going to find a way where this is not going to be zoned correctly. What properties? Let's show everybody what property that we're talking about. We're the only ones to tell you this.
Yeah, this is 1153 Northeast 9th Street. Is that what that says?
It should say that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's what it says. Anyway, and you can see the church there, and I'll try and zoom in a little bit on that and see if you guys can see that a little bit better.
It's near Brighton Academy.
Yeah, although Brighton Academy is on 7th Street and this is on 9th, the next street back, but the back end of these two locations are very close. They actually touch lines there. So
it's things I don't understand. Some people, things in Grants Pass are not that far apart, and it's essentially the equivalent to a block, a city block, a real big city, about a city block away. It's at 9th and it's on 9th Street.
Yeah.
So it's really close. And they think it's in fairly good condition. There was a place that wasn't in fairly good condition, one that the commissioners had been looking at, but it was awful. I mean, they wouldn't even open it up to them a decade ago because it was too dangerous to go into. So you can imagine what it's like now. And when you lean
you can imagine if this has a suitable kitchen, then it also has a suitable hall. They could do a lot of on-site feeding of people right there on site there, and it has a huge parking lot. So
and it's too big for these guys. Here's what they plan on doing. There's good news here. There's good news.
They could sublet half of it to a pot grow operation. Get their money,
Or they could
even start putting some money in their pockets, feed some more old people with that money.
There you go. And also keep them calm by handing out
yes, brownies, the dessert.
These are good brownies. What happened to the rest of them? I ate them all. They were really good.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. A little bit more about what they plan on doing. This is good news.
It's too large for just the meals program, but we do have a number of things that we do in SDS that would be suited to that location. There are a lot of training courses that we give in this county at different locations that we could centralize. Training for spouses whose spouse has Alzheimer's or family members. Dealing with chronic diseases, that kind of thing. Those are becoming, as the CCOs are now getting on board with that being a useful activity that saves them money and improves health. They're starting to actually pay us now to put these classes on. So that's a real positive. The other thing is we're looking at a part of that building that we could either place our DDRV program in, the crisis intervention for developmentally disabled, or find an organization that would like to rent some space that has some sort of nexus with senior or disabled programs. So we think that we can use the building intelligently. And it's a nice neighborhood. And I don't think that any of the neighbors would have an issue with the kind of use we're talking about. In fact, we'd probably get some meal site participants and volunteers from that surrounding, that surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah, that's
sounds
all
like
good news.
all good.
Yeah, that's all good news. Yeah.
Now, who's paying for this building?
Well, that would be a combination of the 4-H Extension District, because as the county always points out these days, it's cheaper to buy it than to rent it. And probably a small business development center or small business block grant.
So both of those things, just so you know, are the county. And so that's your money.
Block grants would come from the state. That comes from your other.
Oh, okay. All right. But bottom line is that
I've been saying it wrong. The evil people who are evicting them are also the ones facilitating this money. Now they didn't go out and look and find this. RV Cog did, but guess who's paying for it? Well,
You know?
the forest extension people, who are also the county commissioners,
Yes.
would be in charge of suggesting it. And these
Right.
guys will never get a block grant entirely on their own. They can't. That only goes to county governments and people like that, or like the city government. So Cheryl and the others are going to have to relent a little bit on their plans for using these block grants. I've been saying the
So
SBDC, and that's been wrong. It's block grants. But go ahead, Mike.
So
They
this
will
is
have-
like me having the 85-year-old woman,
Yeah.
and I am telling her that she's got to leave, but then I end up buying her a house and moving her into it,
Or facilitating
and
the purchase of the
and
house.
allowing her to stay there for nothing forever.
You're facilitating her move, not
Yes.
paying for it, and not finding a place. But yes, they're not totally at fault. I didn't say they were.
They're not even a little bit at fault. They're not even one iota at fault in this
Everyone will
particular
make up
situation.
their own mind on that, but okay.
I think every one of them deserves a medal for going out of their way to, you know what, and maybe they're doing it for political purposes because they fear that people who think as you do on this situation that they're bad people for making these guys move. Maybe that's what's making them do this.
I didn't say they were bad people. I said that they're fairly insensitive on a sensitive political issue.
Jeez.
Well, there's a little bit of
man.
I'm
Okay.
not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that they're a little insensitive about something that touches so many lives. That's all.
I'm sorry. This is like telling an able-bodied person who's on welfare that, you know what we're going to do is we're going to stop your welfare and we're going to set you up with a job because you're able-bodied and you obviously have your wits about you. And we're going to do this thing. We're going to set you up with this job. And then like, oh my God, you're horrible. Ah!
No, I would agree with that. No, but there is a little more nuance to this than that.
Yes. Not a whole lot in my department. And listen, this comes down to worldview. This is where Dale's commie leftism and my right-wing wackoism have a clash here. That's all.
Right. I believe that that there are some things that have been said and some responsibilities that have been kind of tried to be avoided that that perhaps none of this need to happen. Perhaps none of it needed to happen because things could have been handled in a little bit smarter way. Things are going to work out, and eventually they're going to work out because the commissioners have gotten involved. They've sort of pressured to get involved. And they sort of exaggerated when, well, you're trying to run them out of business. Nobody said that.
Listen,
I haven't heard anybody say that.
The 4-H extension money is our tax money.
But that's correct.
That doesn't come from the state. And by the way, the state money is our money too, because we pay
it's
it
all
to
our money. That's right. That's right. And the commissioners are in charge many times and how the money is going to be doled out. So they decided that the 4-H people would get the space and the others would they're not going to get the boot. I'm not exaggerating on this. I'm trying not to. But they were a little less than sensitive about where these guys are going to go. And they can say, well, it's your responsibility. Yeah, that's a little less than sensitive. That's a little less than sensitive. That's all.
Yes.
You don't care.
You know what?
You really don't care.
I say this is the sad commentary to where we have arrived as a society is that, you know what? Get a job is insensitive. Oh, that's insensitive to
that's
say
exaggerating.
that
Nobody's suggesting that
should
people
get a job.
who work all day long and feeding people.
Right. And
listen, people who aren't eating.
And that's fantastic. I got no problem with those people whatsoever.
Senior people that aren't eating enough. We all probably know some senior person.
Yes, of course.
That's not eating enough.
Listen, more of us should go and volunteer for RVCOG in this place and help them get that place set up and cook meals and deliver them.
But don't tell me not you, but don't tell me we're doing everything that we can for these people.
Oh my God. Dale.
They're not doing everything they can for people who are ladling soup. They're just not.
Dale. For crying out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't there some responsibility on the part of RV Cog to facilitate making sure they have a venue to do this? And you're talking over the top of me so no one can hear the brilliance that's coming out of my mouth. So, no,
now, when are they supposed to hear that?
Yes, they have some responsibility to make sure that the venue in which they facilitate all of this stuff takes place.
Absolutely.
That's their responsibility. And for crying out loud, I think the county is scooping about 50% of that responsibility out from under them, at least. But I think that what they're doing for them is more than generous. And you know what? If I'm an evil bad guy, because that's my suggestion, then I guess that's what I am.
No. To me, this is very much like when the miners came to them and said, "Would you sign on with us to advocate for property rights for miners?" You could say to the miners, "You're a business. Do it on your own. Stop asking for handouts from the county government." And all the county government's going to do is they're not going to co-sign. They're going to advocate for these guys to get block grants to do the good work that they're doing. Right. I don't see that as terribly hard, difficult work that's going to take them all day long like it does these guys preparing meals. And so they're saying,
but the point is they're not
a little bit of leeway.
Any of that. They're not obligated to do any of that, and yet they're doing
not obligated to help those miners either. But there are a number of people,
and they haven't.
I don't know that would like them to. That's all.
Yes, of course.
They've got some criticism for not doing so.
And all they would have had to do for that was to stand up and advocate for their position. It doesn't cost them any money. Doesn't cost the county any money. Doesn't cost the state any money.
That's what the commissioners are going to do now. Is they're going to advocate for a block grant.
I guess the miners should stop eating and get on the Food and Friends program, and maybe their position would be a little bit more sympathetic.
Or maybe the older people should hunt among their food for all those lost gold fillings in the food.
Yes. Now you're talking.
All right. I think we've got one more clip. I think so.
I don't think we do have one more clip.
Okay.
No, that was it.
We definitely don't have one more clip. So anyway, those are some of the issues that have been almost completely resolved. Maybe not between the two of us, but you now know a bit more about this. And
we'll duel later.
Right. And as we often do on the show, I know there's a lot of, hey, you're always there. No, not always. No, we do try to present both sides of the argument. You saw us doing it tonight. We do work on trying to see that we're being fair to people. I wasn't saying they're all evil. Mike was saying that Cavallero is. So I'm not saying that they're totally at fault. I'm saying it's not really good politics. This is a show about politics.
It depends.
Well, they pleased Mike Jones. Okay. Thank you for watching. Go ahead.
They went further than I would have. That's how bad of a guy I am.
Well, I think you're practical. I think that you are pragmatic about such things. You believe that people ought to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. I agree with you about
especially those old people.
Yes. Suck it up. And by the way, your grandchildren, especially the youngest ones, okay, can they walk? If they can walk, they should be carrying a backpack with rocks in it.
Yes, they should get a job, for crying out loud.
Get a job, and the same goes for your pets. They're just lolling around, wagging their tail. How do they pay for their meal? They wag their tail. That's enough.
Yes.
To put everybody to work. I'm in favor of everybody working if they can. Too bad that Mike and I can't. Sorry, Mike. Bye now.